Hey, this is Elliot Saltzman back in another week of interviews with millionaires on mentaltoughnesssblog.com. And I often say it's a treat for our guests or the people we have on here, but today, believe me, this is a treat. I am interviewing the great Dale Brown. And for those of you who know basketball, you know of him, but for those of you who don't, Coach Dale Brown was the basketball coach at LSU, Louisiana State University, for 25 years. Get this, he appeared in 15 straight national tournaments and is the second winningest coach in the SEC history. Now, guys, listen to this. He's led his team to 2 Final Fours and 4 Elite Eights. Jeez. He created one of the most feared programs in the nation. And on 2 occasions, he was chosen as the National Basketball Coach of the Year. And in 2007, he appeared on the ABC show Shaq's Big Challenge. He's advised Matthew McConaughey on roles in movies. And for those of you guys, you need to go to DaleBrownMovie.com. DaleBrownMovie.com. They're making a movie about him. And I watched the trailer the other day, and just watch the trailer. It looks like a great movie. So, really what created his legacy was not just what he did on the court, but it's what he's done off the court. So we are very excited to have on as our guest today Coach Dale Brown. So thank you, Coach, for being on the call with us.
Elliot, it's my pleasure. When I heard you giving all those gracious remarks, sitting here pondering it, I thought, what I really looked at after 44 years of coaching, after I first retired, and sat back and pondered what I was going to do in my past, the things that became the most apparent to me, thinking I was doing my very best during that 44 years, were my limitations, my mistakes, and my distance from the ideal, which is just simply a catalyst to let us all know that, hey, we don't even begin to reach our potential.
Wow. Okay. Now, Coach, I got to ask you, you've been a success, and you've coached and created a lot of successful people around you. How do you do it?
Well, I think this sounds rather trite, and it may sound, hey, that sounds like a used car salesman or snake oil salesman or something. But when I first went out to recruit, I had no idea what I was doing. I was a little no-name guy from North Dakota. I'd been a high school coach and a junior high school coach and didn't have any connections. And when I finally was fortunate enough to get a college opportunity and go out to recruit, the first thing I said from the very first time I ever recruited a young man, and I think this was our success, I said, I know I'm here in your home because your son is a good basketball player. However, I want you to know I'm seriously here recruiting a human being first and a basketball player second. And the brief time he's with me at school will not just be the end of my connection with him. I give you my vow now that I will treat him with great dignity the rest of my life. And I think that really was at first somebody was, oh, that sounds like some phony evangelist or some charlatan. But it's really what I felt from the depth of my heart. And even today, I know that when you look back at all the players you recruited, the first player I ever recruited, in fact, was a young man from Romulus, Michigan, who was an All-American by the name of Shaler Hellman. We're still in communication. Now, that's been 40-plus years ago. So I think that's what had a lot to do with it. They knew that I really cared for them as human beings.
Wow. Do you stay in contact with a lot of your players still, Coach?
I'm sorry, Elliot, I didn't hear you.
Do you stay in contact with a lot of your players still?
I know where every one of them are. I've got their phone numbers, what their parents do when they graduated, what their degrees are, how many children they have, their wives' names, and either by telephone, email, face-to-face, and a lot of them come by my office. A lot of them still live in Louisiana. So, yes, I am in touch with them, even though some of them are scattered all over the world because we recruited internationally. And I had players from Israel and Australia and, Spain and Argentina and Dominican Republic and Yugoslavia. So, but we do keep in close touch.
That's inspiring. Now, I think one thing I have to ask, Coach, is as a college basketball fan myself, I'm guessing, even though you had a very successful program, there was plenty of days you guys were down in the game going into the locker room at the half. And your guys maybe weren't having the best day. What is it you say to players to get them back up during the halftime?
Well, boy, that would be a whole conglomeration of things. I think the best point that I tried to make, and I wish I could have, my mentor 40 years, John Wooden, and I miss him so much now, that he was able to take the simplest little things and describe them in one sentence, where I had a tendency to prolong it too much. But the one point I always tried to make to the teams, in the very worst times, when we maybe got upset or we got smashed by somebody or the media was on us or the fans weren't pleased, I always tried to tell them a very simple little thing, and I really believe this from the toes of the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, that adversity only visits the strong but stays forever with the weak. So it's our decision. Are we going to be strong and let this go by? Or are we going to be weak and then it hangs on us forever? Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Wow. Holy cow, that's great. Now, would you recommend, Coach, would you give that same talk to people right now who are maybe struggling in business, who are down in life right now, and say the same thing to them?
Well, right now, when I got out of coaching, I had decisions to make. I was offered numerous jobs to do color on TV and, of course, had a radio show. And that really wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to really go out and spend the rest of my life lifting and motivating people. And the reason I wanted to do it is because I came from very hard times. I was born in Minot, North Dakota on a cold October 31st Halloween in 1935 during the Depression. My so-called father, my mother's husband is what I called him, 2 days before I was born, he literally abandoned my mother, myself, and my 12-year and 11-year-old sister. Never returned, never called, never wrote, never sent any money. My mother came off a farm in North Dakota, 8th grade education, hard to get jobs, had to go on welfare, which is very demeaning. We lived in a one-room apartment above a bar and a hardware store. So I always had what really helped me get over the hurdle of feeling inferior or embarrassed about not having a dad, applying for a job. I was too embarrassed. I'd always write, they'd put father's name, I'd put deceased. But what helped me one time, the ex-coach was visiting with me, and he was telling me daily, he said, you know what you got to recognize? You can make something of your life. He said, get the chip off your shoulder because you don't have a father in your house, and always remember this. He said, God doesn't make any junk, man. And that just stimulated me. So I thought I wanted to spend the rest of my life trying to lift people and let them recognize, hey, that we have unlimited potential. And if we used it all, we'd literally astonish ourselves. So now I go all over the country. I used to go all over the world. I've been in 90 countries in the world. Don't do a lot of international travel anymore, but trying to get people to look, hey, we have strength in us so unbelievable, and we have so much ability. If we would just continue to do that one magical thing, is just never give up. And I enjoy that immensely. Jeez.
Coach, I could keep interviewing you all day. This is a treat, and you have great things to say. You know, I want to go back. You mentioned John Wooden. The great John Wooden was your mentor for 40 years. How important do you believe it is to have a coach or a mentor in your life?
I think it's absolutely, literally imperative. Now, many people do not maybe by birth have good mentors. Maybe they're illegitimate. Maybe their father left them like mine did. Maybe they were abandoned. Maybe they were in foster homes and what have you. But somebody somewhere. Now, the greatest mentor of all we can turn to is certainly God. But somebody physically you can talk to or share things with. And it's difficult when when the person you trust the most isn't around, but mentoring is a major thing in one's life. And Coach Wooden was the master of all. This man had the ability. It was kind of interesting. His mentoring skills. He mentored. You talk about a wide spectrum of people. He had absolutely no vanity whatsoever. And every time I left him, I thought, holy mackerel. He follows. I remember reading sometime back a quote. He follows this perfectly. It said, the role of most leaders is to get the people to think more of the leader. But the role of the exceptional leader is to get the people to think more of themselves. And that's what John Wooden did. He was a servant leader. And insecure leaders, they try to promote themselves. Whereas John Wooden, he wasn't that way at all. But we all need a mentor of some type.
Jeez, this is great.
And by the way, Elliot, if someone's hesitant now listening to this program, they go, well, how would I ever get a hold of anybody? Let me tell you what I did. I had no connections at all, and all of a sudden, bingo, I'm the head coach at LSU in 1972. How am I going? I needed to learn more. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick out the people in certain professions that have had the most success and the greatest longevity. So I started out, let's see, who in the entertainment field? Well, the two most prominent at that time that had the greatest success with the longest tenure, not an overnight star, was Lawrence Welk and was Bob Hope. Well, I had a little bit of a connection. Lawrence Welk was originally from North Dakota. So then I went into who's the greatest positive thinker? Well, Norman Vincent Peale, the father of positive thinking. Who's the greatest motivational speaker in the country? Bob Richards, the great Olympic decathlon athlete. The first guy in the back of the box of Wheaties. How about coaching? Well, there was no one even close to John Wooden. Now, what I did, I called every one of those people. Now, they didn't know me from Adam. How are they going to know me? I'm from Minot, North Dakota. So I called them and explained I'm the new coach at LSU, and I wanted to come and just pick their minds. Do you know every one of them said, you come on. I became very close to every one of them. And when I went to see Coach Wooden, I remember, I thought, now what am I going to talk to the Wizard of Westwood, which he didn't like to be called? What am I going to talk to him about? So I made a list, and I started in the alphabet from A to Z. A, attitude, attention. B, box in one, bulletin board. And down the line, D, diamond in one, defense. Z, zone press, zone offense. And so I went in prepared, and it was amazing. If you'll reach out, some people you think are unattainable, the great ones are more than happy to reach out and help you.
Jeez. I hope everyone listening to this goes back and listens to this a good 5, 10, 15 times. Exactly what you just said right there, Coach. That is that inspirational. That is cool. You know, going back a little bit, one thing I was thinking about as I was preparing for this is how do you stay focused with all the distractions? You know, I think probably back when you were coaching, your players probably had a lot of distractions with the media, with the press, with school, with girls, whatever. How do you keep your players focused, and how do you stay focused when you have a lot of distractions in life?
Well, I think for the players, it's really, really, really difficult, and here's why. Number one, when you're a star, what's the first thing? The girls come after you. Number two, the community wants to have you out for dinner, wants you to speak, wants you to come to their business. 3, the parasites, many parasites, become involved. Now, some of those parasites are people that think they can get gain from them. Now, I certainly wouldn't want to throw a blanket against all agents, because not all agents are bad people in any sense of the word, but far too many are manipulative with these guys. Then maybe a selfish parent will become involved. Then they see their name in the newspaper. And I think what you try to bring in people and talk about it, and I also tried to bring in people that were highly successful and fell because they got caught up with their fame. And I asked John Wooden one time, I said, Coach, let me ask you a question. We're sitting in this little old modest condominium in Encino, California one day, where I'd spent hours and hours, years and years with him. And I said, Coach, how do you stay so focused? I said, I'm more pugilistic. I said, like when someone slams me or something and it's unfair or something, and I said, I have a tendency to want to attack more, but I said, how do you feel when people say you're a charlatan, you're pomp, you're pious, you're St. John, you're a hypocrite, you're not as honest as you, and these are all, of course, jealous or people that are envious. How do you handle it? How do you keep your composure so well? John Wooden, his little simple message, and I gave this message to Shaquille the day he walked out of my office to head to Orlando to start his first professional career. John Wooden said the following. Dale, he said, whenever you're in the public eye, you're going to receive a huge amount of unjustifiable criticism and a large amount of undeserved praise, and you should not be unduly affected by either. There it is, Elliot. Pretty simple. And if players and coaches can do that, then you can keep your focus.
Right. Jeez, this is great. Coach, I could keep asking. I want to respect our time here. I have a question before the end, and that is, what role has mental toughness played in your success, and what do you think mental toughness is?
Mental toughness. Mental toughness goes into a variety of areas. It goes into physical toughness. It goes into mental toughness. It goes into spiritual toughness. I think it's the ability. Mental toughness to me is the ability to recognize, first of all, that no matter how successful you are, you're going to have problems. The problems are going to consist of maybe an injury, maybe you didn't get as much playing time, maybe you didn't get drafted like you thought you were going to. Maybe the game didn't turn out like you were going to, but the ability to keep a strong belief that it's not your IQ that counts as much as your FQ, your failure quotient. The FQ, your failure quotient, is far more important than your IQ. And for you to be able to understand, if you'll go look at the most successful people, whoever they may be in this world, you will find some of the biggest failures in the world. So in order to keep your mental toughness, failure can really come in there and bounce. Everybody has a wonderful idea. They all want to be successful. And then as soon as something goes wrong, people become a pessimist. So you've got to resist being a pessimist. You have to replace all negative thoughts with positive ones. You've got to open your mind to your limitless potential, and you'll be surprised by the results. Now, history, if we go back, if you're a historian at all, you study history at all, it provides us with monumental examples of highly successful people who were confronted with major and many failures, but they made their dreams come true. So our response to failure will determine our future, and that's going to keep your mental toughness. You look at some of the most successful people. Let me just pick out one, for example. Talk about mental toughness. Here's a guy his whole time in his life, all he could think about, hey, I want to be a film director. I want to produce movies. So after he graduated from high school, he applied to the #1 film school in the country, UCLA. He was rejected by that school. Broke his heart. So now his mental toughness, USC's doggone good. I'll go to USC. He was rejected at USC. So now what's he going to do? So he winds up at a little insignificant college by the name of Long Beach State. Now he has become, the guy that was rejected, he has become the most successful film director of all time, Steven Spielberg.
Jeez.
So that's what mental toughness is. It's also, Elliot, being a success has little to do with the judgment of the so-called expert. So the next time that an expert attacks your dream, you got to take comfort in realizing that people who achieve some of the greatest accomplishments in the world were told their goals weren't impossible. But their mental toughness combined with their spiritual toughness, they were able to accomplish fantastic things. One of my favorite poets is Oliver Wendell Holmes. And I think he said so much better than I could, quote, "What lies behind you and what lies ahead of you is of little importance compared to what lies within you. So what lies within you, you manufacture. You have a choice. The choice you can make is give up or say, hey, I'm going on."
Coach, I could listen to you all day. I can see why. I bet your players were very excited to always go to the locker room and listen to you speak. Is there anything else you'd like to end with before we end this?
Well, I think that anybody that might be listening to this, everybody should have a dream. Now, I'm not talking about a wish. There's a difference between wishing and willing something. And to propel your dream forward, there's no magic pill, prayer, prescription, or magic wand you can wave. But if you really want to change your life, if you're in the worst situation possible, if you're bankrupt today, if you've been fired from a job, if you're a drug addict, if you had divorce, whatever the situation is, if you need to propel your dream forward, you've got to do the following. And I don't mean to make this cavalier like it's this simple, but you've got to have intuition, you've got to have imagination, you've got to have determination, you've got to have commitment, you've got to have perseverance, and the boldness of faith. And remember, it's never too late to become what you might have been. And that sounds simple, but that's the truth.
Jeez. The great Coach Dale Brown. Thank you so much, Coach, for being on the call with us today.
Elliot, it's my pleasure, and I hope somebody could have been helped by this today. And keep up your good work.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Elliot, bye.